you guys want to see my pick for this year's 2025 Mr. Olympia, stay tuned.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RXMuscle.com. Olympia week is upon us. This is Iron Debate, the Olympia preview episode of Iron Debate. I'm your host, Dave Palumbo. So glad you can join us. In a week's time, we will be in Vegas. Dave, myself, Chris, the rest of our crew, we will be there to provide wall-to-wall coverage of the 2025 Olympias. We bring in our panel. The man you saw first, the 2023 Mr. USA. You saw him on stage this past season at the Tampa Pro and taking an impressive runner-up finish at the Texas Pro, Joe Palacios. Joe, how are you, my friend?
Very good, guys. Happy to be here.
What's up, Joe?
What's up, Dave?
Of course, we got, for this kind of a preview show, we had to bring him back. We haven't had him on in quite some time. New York originally, now in Florida, Fakhri Mubarak. Fakhri, how's it going, my friend?
Thank you, guys. Happy to be here.
And of course, Armon, who was kind enough this upcoming weekend, Olympia weekend, Armon is going to be hosting our live reaction shows. So this is something that we started to do a couple of years ago. So during prejudging, during finals, we are going to have live reactions in addition to the wrap-ups that we're going to have after prejudging and finals. But Armon is going to be hosting all that. It's going to be full wall-to-wall coverage. And of course, the man with the final word on all topics, Dave Palumbo. Dave, we haven't done the show in quite some time. I know we did a couple of weeks ago, but why is it that we always wait till right before the Olympia? Why don't we do this more often?
Because you and I don't stop moving. We have not a single second of extra time on our hands, and that goes for everyone. Armon's got the same schedule. I know Fakhri's nonstop. Joe, enjoy your free time now, because once you stop competing and you get to business, you're never going to have a free moment to yourself. So.
That's all right. That's all right.
But let's get right into it, guys. This is the eve of the 2025 Olympia, and truly, when you think about it, you look at this lineup, maybe the deepest lineup. And I feel like we say that every year, but I truly mean that this time. And of course, it just got deeper with the news yesterday that Behrouz Tabani, who for 4 consecutive years was Olympia qualified, and finally getting his visa issued to him yesterday. So he is en route to the U.S. He should be arriving in the evening on the West Coast time. And all of a sudden now that changes the complexion of that upper third of the Olympia lineup. Joe Palacios, how does this news change the complexion of that maybe top 6 or top 4, in your opinion, with Behrouz now in the lineup?
I mean, I already have my lineup of guys that I think will take each placing. However, I think he's going to take on that 5th place spot, which is going to move somebody out. I truly believe he'll be in the top 5 this year.
Fakhri, when you look at what Behrouz Tabani has brought over the last few years, we talk about wins at the Flex Pro, back-to-back wins at the Dubai Pro against quality competition. In your opinion, what makes him so dangerous?
I mean, he has it all. He has shape, he has symmetry, he has that graininess, he has, the lines, when he those deep insertions, when he gets really peeled. So he has what it takes to, to catch the judge's eye with that wow factor.
Armon, you being a fellow Iranian, now all of a sudden you have the likes of Behrouz, you have Hadi, obviously a mainstay, of Sasan Harati. Talk to us about the Iranian bodybuilder and really the resurgence of Iranian bodybuilders that we see now featuring on the Olympia stage, and what you figure to see out of Behrouz next weekend.
Well, first of all, I'm glad he made it here. I'm sure, he was in tears when he found out he could actually come here. I mean, that's a dream come true. That's like what third or fourth year has been trying to come. Persian bodybuilders, they get that grainy conditioning. They just get in shape a lot faster, and they have that thin skin. And I'm really, excited to see what he brings to stage. I mean, the last show I did, I think he wasn't at his best. He was probably 85, 90%. So I think we can see, which was amazing. 100% Beirut is very dangerous, and I think he can crack that top 5.
Dave, who does Beirut pose the biggest danger to in terms of knocking them out of that top 4, top 5?
Well, to answer the question about why Persian bodybuilders or Iranian bodybuilders are so good, it's those abs. They got the best abs in the world. Really, I mean, think about all the Middle Eastern bodybuilders over the last couple decades. They all have amazing abs. And look, abs are, they win shows. I mean, look at Hadi. I mean, the guy's unbelievable with the abs. Shrink wrapped, and I think Beirut has that same thing going for him, especially when he brings that shrink wrapped look. I don't know who he displaces. I wanted when Joe said that he could be 5th, I wanted to see in his mind who he was kicking out of the top 5, because I don't know. I don't know. A lot of people can say, well, maybe Nick Walker would be kicked out of the top 5, but I think Nick is just overwhelmingly huge, and I don't know if Beirut can beat him, to be honest with you, because Nick just brings like a crazy amount of size and conditioning to the stage. Beirut has kind of got more of an aesthetic physique, and I think that when guys are out of shape or a little off, he comes in with that conditioning and his flow. He'll beat guys, but he's not going to overwhelm anyone on stage. He's not one of those physiques that it's overwhelming, like a Samson Dowder or an Andrew Jacked or a Nick Walker. He's more like he's got a little of everything that you want to see in bodybuilding. So he can make people look bad on stage, but I don't think he's going to overwhelm the freaks on stage, assuming they come in at 100%. So I don't know if I'm putting him in top 5. I might give him that 6th or 7th position.
Joel, let's go back to you, because again, when we talk about Beirut, and I feel like what Dave just mentioned as far as someone like a Nick, who seemingly never comes in on. When we make these predictions, we always kind of make it under the assertion that everyone's going to come in on, which seemingly is never the case. Beirut and Hadi do seem to be one of those that consistently nail their conditioning. But again, the concern with Beirut, and again, I want you to speak on this, is that the size factor, that maybe he's going to get outsized by the likes of a Samson, by the likes of a Nick Walker, by the likes of an Andrew Jack. Where do you stand on that? From what we've seen in the back-to-back wins in Dubai, do you think he gives up anything in the size department?
I think because of the balance of his physique, the size is almost like not too big of a factor because it's such a pretty look. And he's not a small guy, like stature-wise. So I think he'll outcondition easily someone like an Andrew Jack, which is going to make Andrew stand out as a weak, like it's a huge weak point already. So I think he can easily pass up Andrew as far as that goes, especially with the balance and just shape of his muscle and all that. Like you talk about the insertions, the detail, that pretty looking set of abs and stuff. I don't know if people remember, but like Martin was in that top 5. So
Top 4.
I'm comparing him more so to Martin than anybody. I think that's the biggest threat, and as high as he can go.
Who's your top 5, Joe?
In order, or just name them off?
No, just name them off. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I have Nick, Hadi, Samson, Derek, and originally Martin, but with Beirut, I think Beirut is going to knock out Martin.
You know, last year there was the talk of, well,
did you mention Hadi? He mentioned Hadi?
Yeah, he mentioned Hadi. Yeah. No, but he brought up Martin, and that last year when Martin finished 4th in his debut Olympia, and some of the talking points was, well, if Beirut had been in that lineup, where would he have placed? And obviously that's a different topic for a different time. But one of the things that we saw out of Beirut, and again, we're talking about shape, size, symmetry. His legs seem to be a little downsized. This Dubai Pro versus last Dubai Pro, that was the one criticism, but his balance is so on point. Dave, who in terms of the conditioning that he brings, right? We talk about the balance that he brings. Forget Samson, forget Nick. How does he stack up against a like, say, of a Hadi or a Derek? I
think Derek is overwhelming. I don't think if Derek comes in like I know he will, and I've seen some pictures of him, from Chris. I don't see Beirut touching Derek. I don't see Beirut touching Hadi. I think those guys, unless Hadi comes in off. I haven't seen Hadi, so I can't say. But if Hadi comes in the way we know Hadi is, There's no way that Beirut is touching either one of those guys. And I don't think he beats Sampson unless Sampson is really messes up his conditioning, which I don't see happening. And like I said, I don't see him beating Nick because I think Nick's too big for him, even though he's got way better shape than Nick. So I think those guys are solid top 4, assuming they're not dramatically off. I agree with Joe. That 5th position with Martin and Andrew and the rest of the crew is what people are fighting for. Don't forget Brandon Curry either. Brandon Curry's no joke. So you never know where these guys are going to fall. But I think the top 4 is pretty locked in unless someone really screws up.
So, and I'm going to show this on the screen, but let's zoom out a little bit. Let's talk about who features right now in this lineup. Obviously, Samson, Hadi, Derek, right? Those are the ones that you figure if someone's going to disrupt, it's going to be in that group because they're figured to be in that top 3 profile. Good Vito. That's another name that, again, we really missed out on is seeing him in Pittsburgh. He pulled out because of an injury, but that would have been that pre-Olympia look into how he stacked up against a quasi-Olympia lineup. You have the likes of Tonio Burton, Sasan Herati making his debut, Naxila, Rubio Masquera.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned.
I'm glad you mentioned Good Vito because you know what? I completely blocked him out, and I saw pictures of him too, and he looks like Jay Cutler, a young Jay Cutler. That's how good he was.
You have some other debutants, Jordan Hutchinson, Urs Kalasinski, obviously crossing over from the classic physique, Regan Grimes returning. And then look, there was a video, and I'll put this on the screen, of Andrew Jacked training. He's training out in Tampa. I know Kamal Elgarni's helping him as well. And I don't think we've ever seen his face that sucked in before. Dave, I remember 2 years ago, we were so zoomed in on the conversation of the tall guy versus the short guy, right? You had Andrew and Samson. Then you had Derek and Hadi. And what was the way forward for this open class division? And I feel like now, obviously, it's a much more convoluted conversation. So, Armon, let's go back to that. What has changed about this open class in the last couple of years, in your opinion?
It's a lot more exciting to me. I mean, you got a lot of the top 4, top 5. I mean, let's say the top 4. You couldn't flip flop those guys any way, and any of those guys could win. If someone's off, if Hadi's off, if Derek's off, if Samson, Nick, any one of those guys can slip in there and win or get second. So we can see a big upset. We can see. I mean, what did Ronnie have, Samson? Like 4th or 5th? Like his prediction, which I mean, I don't think that would happen unless Samson just did something absolutely crazy. The thing with Samson, everybody always said, he just can't get that kind of conditioning, and his body just can't get there. Like, yeah, he could, he just wasn't pushing it hard enough. And now we see the death face, which which shows he's in condition. But is he gonna? A lot of people say, well, he's downsized some. I don't think he's downsized much at all. I think when we saw him guest pose, he was a little maybe depleted for that and got in shape for that. But I think he's going to bring a pretty sound package. But is it going to be enough to beat Derek? A lot of people have counted Derek out. They're like, they don't have Derek. They're like, he's not Mr. Olympia. He doesn't represent well. That's what I've heard from certain people. And I think Derek is still going to be hard to beat. You got Samson. That I have Samson probably in second. But yeah, that 5th spot, I think Beirut is a better bodybuilder than Martin. Just his stature, his symmetry, and overall, Martin made that big jump that we saw, and he looked really good. But after that, I don't know how much Martin can improve after that.
Fact, let me go to you because let's talk a little bit more about the defending champion, Samson Dauda. We saw the Mr. Olympia winning look last year, and then what we saw in Pittsburgh. We saw him in guest posing just a few weeks ago. And now we're seeing what we haven't seen out of him before, and that is truly that death face. What would you like to see out of Samson in his first title defense?
Well, first and foremost, we don't have that, Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler only call out. We don't have that Phil Heath, Kai Green only call out, right? So to say that Samson is going to be dominant, I mean, Derek won the Olympia. Derek won the Arnold, right? I think if Samson brings everything that he needs to bring, especially conditioning, because he has the size. But if he brings the conditioning, yeah, he's going to be hard to beat. But I agree. I agree with Dave and Armon also as well. I mean, you have Samson, you have Hadi, you have You have Derek and you have Nick. You have those 4 guys that if anything happens, they could switch positions at any time. So I don't believe we have a dominant Olympia champion, and that's what makes the Olympia exciting this year and the last couple of years, and the last few years, because we've had 3 different Olympias.
Joe Palacios, we have interviewed Samson when he was training Quinton Uria for the Italy Pro, and asked him specifically what was different about this Olympia approach as opposed to previous. And he said one word: torture. Torture was going to be the plan going into this Olympia, extra cardio, doing what he needs to do to get that extra little baby fat off. Your opinion, what's the best look that you want to see out of Samson Dowd in his first title defense?
I think he has to get absolutely peeled to be able to hold his title. So the only issue would be like going to that place, never being there before. You may lose tissue on the way down. And I know like you're always going to lose it in the places that you don't want to lose it the most. So until you've been peeled like that, it may hurt your look a little bit the first time around. So I'm hoping it doesn't take away from his back shots, which worries me for him. But he has to come in peeled. Like, it's one of those things. Like, they called Phil Heath out for his stomach issues, and they were going to punish him if he didn't fix it. The same thing's going to happen to Samson. They already made an example of it at the Arnold. So it's very prevalent that that's the look he has to bring. He doesn't really have a choice if he wants to hold on to the title. I just hope that pushing that level of conditioning doesn't hurt his look.
Dave Palumbo, best look for Samson Dowd.
Well, I think the what we're not acknowledging, and we probably forgot, is that last year Derek was horrible, right? His legs were really downsized. He was not the Derek we had seen win the Olympia. And Hadi was really rough. I know people say, well, he wasn't that bad. No, he was bad. His legs were down. His lower back was not shrink wrapped like it was at the Arnold when he won earlier in the year. So we had 2 guys that were not good. And that's why Samson won the Olympia. Let's face it. Because if one of those guys would have been at their best, they would have won. Okay? Those are the 2 last reigning Olympia champs. And I'm not taking anything away from Samson. I love his physique. But he knows that if he doesn't bring the conditioning in, he's going to lose. So he's working his butt off, literally. The good thing about Samson is he's got that kind of physique that you could torture the crap out of him, and he will not lose muscle. I don't think he loses muscle. He'll get really flat, but if he gets himself into shape at a week out and he's ready to go, he can fill up, and he's going to look amazing. So I think that he really, since he's the reigning Olympia champ, he holds his fate in his own hands. If he delivers the goods, okay, at the Olympia, he wins because he's bigger than everyone and he's taller and he's more impressive. If he doesn't deliver the goods and he's a little off, that leaves the door open for Derek and Hadi or even Nick to come in there and win. So I think really it sucks to have to handicap bodybuilding this way, and I know Fakhri's going to agree with me, but it's sometimes who's the best guy up there and who has the least faults, because at least half the guys in that top group of the top 10 are going to be off in some capacity. And then we're going to be saying, oh, we thought that this person was going to win, but he sucks, or he's off, he messed up, he screwed up somehow. He's now 6th or 7th, and he should have been, he could have possibly won. So there's going to be guys that are going to mess up. It's not everyone's going to be in shape. And I've never seen an Olympia where that was the case. Maybe 98 Olympia, when Ronnie won. But, it doesn't usually happen. So assuming we're trying to handicap the show, assuming who we like best. If everyone's in shape, I think it's Hadi versus Derek for the win. I really do. I think they're the most complete bodybuilders in my mind. But I do want to say that I think Good Vito is going to be the dark horse and is going to mess that top 5 up. Don't be surprised if he's in that top 5 and he's challenging for the win, because this guy he's got no weaknesses. If he delivers what I've seen in his update pictures, I think it's going to be very dangerous.
I was just going to ask you, again, not revealing too much, but what you have seen out of Good Vito. And keep in mind, again, we were deprived of that opportunity to see him at the Pittsburgh Pro against, this top end of the lineup minus Samson. From what you have seen, what makes him so dangerous in this lineup?
He's round. He's shredded to the bone. He has no weaknesses. He's gotten better every single year we've seen him. he's really deadly. His only weakness in my mind is his height. He's not that tall. So, but he's going up against Derek and Hadi, who are about the same height. So the height thing is not going to be an issue, unless Samson comes in and just decimates everyone. He's got his advantage is that he's not going against super tall guys. Everyone's kind of on the shorter side. So that's why I think he's going to match up really well with those guys. And like I said, if he delivers the goods and he doesn't get sick or injure himself or something unforeseen happen like that happened, before the Pittsburgh, I think we're going to see him vying in that top group.
Let's talk a little bit more about Derek Lunsford, 2023 Mr. Olympia, and then really, in his own words, a disappointing appearance at the 2024 in his first title defense, and really a resounding comeback at the Arnold Classic. Really, what we saw out of him, the legs were up, the back was as dominant as ever. Then we see him at Pittsburgh, neck and neck with Nick Walker. Armon Adibi, what do you want to see? We talk about the back, we talk about the legs coming up at the Arnold and at the Pittsburgh Pro. What do you want to see out of Derek here at the 2025 edition?
I mean, the legs. Like, if he has his legs up, I think he's gonna win. I know he gets criticized all the time still for all this not being, shredded up or whatever you want to call it. But his back shot, every shot he's great in, and the weakness is if his legs don't come in. Like if his legs aren't there, he's gonna drop maybe one or two places. And like Dave said, him and Hadi. Like, if everybody's conditioned, I see him and Hadi battling out for first place. Going to Samson, he's got to get super shredded. But we've never seen a shredded Samson ever. We've seen a big full Samson. We've never seen this. So we're all trying to picture what is this going to look like on stage. Is he going to be able, like Dave said, he's not going to lose muscle, but he can be flat. And when you're flat, you look like you lose muscle from the back. Like Joe said, in his back shots, if he's shredded to the bone but not filled out enough, he don't have to be filled out like the other guys, but he just needs to be filled up enough, and then I think he could come in and potentially, take that first place.
Joe Palacios, Derek Lunsford, we talk about him, and really over the course of this era, maybe the most dominant back in the open class. We've seen the different iterations of his legs over the last 2-3 shows. What do you want to see out of Derek?
I want to see kind of what Armin just said. I just want to see his legs just come in as full as possible with enough conditioning, because I think, like you said, he's pretty dominant. His shape, his lines, and all that stuff, as long as his legs don't come down. Because once his legs are down, it throws off his whole physique. And but yeah, he has the picture perfect physique when his legs are good. So,
Fakhri, let's finish it up with you. What do you want to see out of Derek?
The combination of when he won the Olympia and this year's Arnold, right? I mean, you guys have to remember Derek is very young. So in order for the legs to go down, that means he's not training them, or his upper body is growing faster than his lower body. And I don't think that's happening. His legs were down, but as Dave said, Hadi and Derek were both off last year. So when they put Samson in the middle and those two guys were off, it was over, right? Because you had Samson so tall, in good condition, decent condition, and Hadi and Derek were off. But if Derek brings the package that he should bring, because you shouldn't go backwards at that age. You should always move forward. You should only get better every single year. There's no such thing as going backwards. If you're going backwards, you're doing something completely wrong. I can see Derek winning the Olympia. I mean, the legs are important. His back is incredible. He has that insane V-shaper. Armon talked about, like, people complain about his upper body. It's not as shredded. It's hard. It might not have the fibers popping out, but he's good enough, and we all know he's good enough. He's won the Olympia. He's won the Arnold.
Let's talk about the men that he faced at the Pittsburgh Pro, Nick Walker. And really, when you think about the last 3 years that has been for Nick, first suffering the hamstring injury in 2023, withdrawing from the Olympia. Last year, withdrawing because he and his coach agreed they didn't like the look, they didn't like where he was at, they withdrew. This is going to be the first Olympia in 3 years. We hope that everything goes all right. He's going to be on that stage. You have to imagine, and again, this is the aura that he brings to that Olympia stage, or really any bodybuilding stage that he's going to bring. He's going to get the loudest ovation. He's going to get the crowd in an absolute frenzy. But we talk about Nick Walker from the perspective of this is someone that, generally speaking, you're never going to see off. Now, you could bring up last year's New York Pro. He was not 100%. He wasn't at his best, but it was good enough to win. Joe Palacios, Nick Walker, what do you expect to see next week at the Olympia out of the Mutant?
So I've said this on multiple platforms, but I actually have Nick winning the whole thing. I think the level of muscularity he's bringing, he's always going to come in conditioned. I think his legs came up drastically. I'm sure he's worked diligently on some of his shots, posing wise, as far as like making them look better. I still, to this day, think he won Pittsburgh myself. And I think with that said, just a better version of that look to me is going to take it all. So I expect Nick to win.
What is the best look for Nick? Is it going to be biggest or more shredded?
I think the best look for Nick will be the conditioning that he brought going against Samson, where he lost, with better legs. And I think he's going to do that.
Dave, 2023 Olympia, I still remember before we went on air, the conversation was, what if Nick was in this lineup where a number of guys were off? What do you want to see out of Nick next weekend?
The bigger and the harder and the freakier he looks, the better he does. I think he realized that. I think he tried to play this like aesthetics game for a year or two, and it just wasn't working for him. And I think he went back to the basics. And what we saw in Pittsburgh, and it seems like he's only gotten better from Pittsburgh. I had Derek winning in Pittsburgh, but by a small margin. I think he's bigger now. He's maybe harder from at least the update pictures we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
So if he brings that to the stage and he doesn't worry about how small my waist is or anything like that, he's going to be a fan favorite. But he's also, I put him in the category of like a Marcus Rule. The fans will love this guy to the end of time. He's a freak. I love the freaks. I mean, I know Joe loves the freaks. He's a freak. We want to see big, freaky guys on stage with crazy conditioning. However, having said that, historically speaking, the bigger guys with the better structure usually win the Olympia. I mean, so for Nick to win the Olympia, okay, these other guys are going to have to be off a little bit. The guys we're talking about, the Derricks and the Hotties and the Samsons, because they got to leave the door open a little bit. And then Nick slips in there and you're like, you know what? Who cares about his waist, or who cares if his torso is a little longer than his legs? It doesn't matter. The guy just beats everyone, because when you see him up there, he's the champ. But I think that if Derek's polished, and look, Tarek El Gunti, called me the other day, and I know he doesn't just call out of nowhere. And he's like, I was down in Tampa and I saw Derek, and I got to tell you, I've never seen Derek's legs so big before. He was super impressed, and he's not going to just call me and tell me that unless it's the truth. So, and he saw him in person. So I think Derek did what he had to. Last year he was working with a different coach, and obviously they were overdoing it. He was over dieting. He was overdoing cardio. I think since he hooked up with Chris Aceto, they kind of showed that he knows they got the right formula now. They won the Arnold. They won the Pittsburgh. I was worried that maybe Derek would be overtrained and he wouldn't be able to peak for this show, but it seems like he's looking amazing. So once again, I think that a peaked out Derek Lunsford is going to be very hard to beat on that stage. And, I don't think Nick could take him out when he's at his best. But I love the fact that we're going to get to see it up close, because I like Derek as a guy. I'm kind of rooting for him just because I like him. But I always like to see great competition up there. And you know what? I'll be the first person to praise whoever deserves to win.
Armon Adibi, Nick Walker will win the Olympia if
the other guys are off, like everybody said. If the other guys are off, Nick, like we've all said, like Dave said, like we'd love to see that muscle, like the Marcus Rule look. He's a freak. We all love freaks. That's what we love. That's what I fell in love with open bodybuilding. I saw all the freaks. We love to see that. But is he good enough to win the Olympia? Like Dave said, the structure and everything. I don't think he is to win the Olympia, but anything can happen. If the other guys are off, which it can happen, all those guys can come off or not on point, and Derek could easily slip in there. I mean, Nick could slip there and win. Do I see it happening? I don't see it happening, but it's up to Nick how he comes in, and like Dave said, he is a fan favorite, And I'm excited to see him up there after not being there the past 2 years. But I just don't think he can win the show.
Fakhri, final word on Nick Walker. What does he need to bring to put himself in that final 1-2 call out?
That nasty freak factor. Just big, dense, shredded, sliced, deep insertions. And I think he's doing it right now. That's what he is. And, I think Dave said earlier that he hadn't gone away from what made him that freak over the last couple of years. And, I saw a post, I think it was late last year. He said, going back to basics. Basics work. That's what built him. That's what built many of us, right? It was the basics of hard training.
Yeah.
Could it be? Could he win the Olympia? Well, let's hypothetically speak about a scenario. Samson is a little flat because he's so focused on being shredded, right? Derek, I've heard as well from Tampa. I live in Kissimmee. He's in Tampa. I'm about an hour and a half away. He's in incredible shape. Hardy's always in good shape, but we've seen him a little bit off, maybe 5-10% off. So you only have 3 guys. One of them could be flat. Derek, something could happen to Derek because we've seen it before, and Hardy could be a little bit off. Nick is completely on, brings in that freak factor, and that's what bodybuilding is. Bodybuilding is that freak factor. Now, also we talked about height. A taller, better bodybuilder is always going to be the shorter, better bodybuilder, right? But it has to do with everything: symmetry, conditioning, shape, and just being overwhelmed. And sometimes when Nick comes on stage, like he did at Pittsburgh, right? It was like, holy shit, what the fuck did he just bring? And that's what he needs to bring. And I think we've all seen it. We all follow him on Instagram, or if you don't follow him, you see him because it pops up. We've seen that freak factor develop this year.
Let's bring up 2 guys that in many respects may actually be a little overlooked coming into this Olympia. And one is the guy who finished 4th last year in his debut Olympia, Martin Fitzwater. Joe Palacios, we last saw him at Pittsburgh, and I feel like bodybuilding analysis is very fickle. Literally what you saw 2 seconds ago is going to frame your opinion for the next few weeks, next few months. Why do you feel as if Martin Fitzwater is overlooked perhaps heading into this Olympia?
I think inconsistencies make you look less than what you are at times. So he nailed it for the Olympia, and it's not that he's been terrible, but he hasn't matched that look or bettered it. And so when everyone's progressing or whatnot, it kind of makes them seem like they're falling behind. So if it's better to be consistent than nail it and then be off and be off again and not show your best, at least, a few times, So I think inconsistencies is what's kind of like putting I guess you could say, a bad mark on him and making him seem like he's going to slip up. So, which is why I even have him potentially losing to someone like Baruz, because it's hard to bet on someone that's not as consistent, right? So, do I think he's not going to nail it? No, I'd like to think that he figured it out, and is only going to get better. But if he continues to miss the mark, it's going to hurt him.
Dave, what did you see out of Martin, say, New York Pro last year at the Olympia? And let's kind of put aside this Pittsburgh, because to his own admission, he was off. He was trying to chase something that was just not going to be a flattering look to his physique. What impressed you most about Martin? And again, brings what he brought last year. Where could he factor in this top 5, top 6?
Yeah. I loved him in Pittsburgh because he had detail. And I think it was because he was pissed off that he had won the Detroit show, right? And then people were saying he didn't really deserve it, and Good Vito should have beat him, and he didn't really have to compete again. He could have just gone right to the Olympia. He was qualified, but he said, "You know what? I want to prove to people and to myself that I can be better." And he came in so detailed. I remember when he turned around and hit that back double bicep pose, the lower back and the everything.
You're talking about New York, right, Dave?
New York.
Yeah. You said Pittsburgh.
He had detail that was incredible. He wasn't as big as Nick, but I thought, and that wasn't a great Nick Walker. I thought he won that show, and then he came to the Olympia, and he obviously, when he plays 4th, right?
Yeah.
So, he wasn't as good at the Olympia as he was in Pittsburgh, but he was pretty close to that. And you know what? Sometimes when guys get bigger, they don't get better. And I think the last since the Olympia, I don't think he's been better. It looks like he's doesn't have that crazy detail, because I think he's worried about coming in bigger and having enough size to compete with these guys. And I think he abandoned that. I'm going to kill myself so I look like a freak conditioning wise. Because you know what? I used to be at 280 pounds. I had striated glutes, and I was probably harder than everyone else. Okay. But it wasn't the same level of conditioning I had when I was 265 or 268. I was like shrink wrapped ridiculously. Same thing, Hadi Chupin. Hadi Chupin, when he won the Arnold, was the most crazy shredded guy I've ever seen. He didn't look like that at the Olympia. So Martin has got to go back to what makes him special, which is his ability to get into a crazy conditioning and show the detail that he has. Don't worry about how big you are. Worry about the detail you show. And I think if he goes back to that, he's going to do better. If he doesn't, I think he's going to be one of those guys that, well, he looked good, but he could have been, something just looked like it was missing. And I think people are having trouble defining what's missing, but it's that level of detail. Even though he's still got glutes and he's got this and that, he doesn't have that level of detail he had in Pittsburgh and at last year's Olympia. And we need to see that from him, or he's not going to do well.
Fakhri, we talk about Martin last year, and he was having a conversation with Dave and Chris after that second place finish at the New York Pro. And he talked about, look, I might not be the biggest guy on stage, but I want to be the closest thing to what we saw out of, and again, Phil Heath comparisons. So I don't want to make it a one-on-one comparison, but the round, the 3D look, and he does want to bring something different. Can he potentially replicate what he did last year in terms of placing or somewhere in that range, not being the biggest guy on stage, really in a lineup of really big guys in that upper echelon?
The problem is, and I did the same thing, right? Like I was known for my conditioning and shreddedness. And then when I try to come up a few more pounds, 20, 25 more pounds, my line's kind of blurred. So for a taller guy, you could be bigger and less conditioned and win. For a shorter guy, you need to be more conditioned in order to be a better bodybuilder, right? Because conditioning is everything. So when you put that size game at a certain height, your lines might get blurred. Do I think that he could replicate last year's fourth place? I mean, I have my lineup in front of me right now. It's going to be hard with Bruce. Martin just has to just get better. He's also a young guy, and just let time evolve. Let his body evolve with time. Don't push the size game. The size will come in as long as the body catches up. You know what I'm saying? Like, just stay conditioned and just put on a few pounds a year. But if you're shorter, you cannot have less conditioning. It can't work that way, especially at that level.
Armon, in your opinion, is the best Martin someone who can potentially nail that conditioning with a bigger look, or someone that needs to just double down on that conditioned look?
I think he needs to double down on his conditioning. I don't think he's going to be one of these guys that's going to the other guys are just bigger guys. He needs to focus on coming in. He's balanced. He doesn't have any weak body parts. That's the good thing about Martin. So he's very balanced, but he needs to worry about coming there and being the nastiest condition he can possibly get. Like before, he tried to, whatever they try to do, whether it was him as coach or both of them, try to come in bigger. That did not work for him at all. He looked really bad, like that last show he did. I forgot the show, but he looked really bad at that show. Compared to his previous look. And whatever they did, they don't need to try that again. Martin needs to come in as freaky, shredded, grainy as possible, and that's going to be the best Martin could be. Is it going to be a top 5, or is Beirut's going to move in there, or what? I don't know. I just don't think Martin has the size and look unless he comes in there with insane freaky conditioning, maybe for that 5th spot.
Before we go to our top 5, top 6 predictions, whichever you guys want to do, I did want to bring up one more, and really maybe of this generation, quite possibly the biggest wild card of all wild cards, and that is Andrew Jack. Andrew Jack, who burst onto the scene, right? I mean, literally started as a competitive bodybuilder late into his 30s, early 40s. instantly became a factor, not only, in the top end of the Olympia, but even in the quasi-Olympia Arnold Classic, finishing third and announcing himself truly as one of the top threats to the Mr. Olympia title. We haven't seen maybe the best Andrew. Perhaps we saw it at the Arnold Classic in terms of being the most conditioned look. Came out with the bandana, full personality on display. We talk about him walking into any room and you looking at him and saying to yourself, oh my God, that must be Mr. Olympia right there. Why is Andrew Jack being overlooked, Joe Palacios, heading into this 2025 Olympia, in your opinion?
Again, I mean, at that level, you can't go into the Olympia like not conditioned enough. Like he's so good that he places that high. Like it's just, but again, that conditioning factor, that's extremely important. That's what's going to separate you by that percentage point, and that's what it comes down to in that top five. And I don't know him personally. I just see him. But I think there's something to be said, like to chase a certain level of conditioning, especially at that level of the sport, you have to truly have like a passion for this. And like to suffer in that manner. Obviously, you're watching Samson do it, right? You've seen Nick do it. You see Hadi do it. I don't know if Andrew has it to do that. And I think in knowing that, I don't really see him ever being above a top 4 spot. And that's because he's, I'm not saying he doesn't work hard, but there are people that will suffer harder because they just have that crazy passion for it. Like I said, like a Nick or a Hadi or a Derek, it's like, I just don't think he has that in him to get any higher than he's gotten based on his God-given genetics and just loving training kind of thing.
But what makes Andrew Jack so dangerous? Last year we talked about maybe the best front double bicep in the upper echelon of the open class. What makes him such a threat if you look at that top 4, top 5?
Just his beautiful shape, and like what you said, when you see him in person, like at the Texas Pro, and I saw him backstage just in his trunks, and he's a free. I mean, it's amazing. He has an amazing physique, but when he gets on that stage, especially from the back, the glutes, the hams, when they're not dialed in, he's not going to get any. He's not going to make any progress. And like Joe said, from that this spot, he's not going to get any higher than that. And I just don't see, like Joe said, I just don't see him making those dramatic changes from the back. Like we need to see that etched in detail, hamstrings, glutes, without maybe losing a little more size in the legs. I just don't see it happening. But he's an amazing bodybuilder, amazing physique, very pretty to see. So, I just love seeing him on stage, even if he's not going to be, contending for the top 3.
I'm sorry. Were you done, Armon?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Fakhri, what do you need to see out of Andrew Jack next weekend?
I think as bodybuilding fans and historians, right, we always speak about what if. What if he does come in shredded? Can he break the top? Can he break the top 3, top 4? I think the top 4 is already solidified. To be honest, everybody's in conditioning, but when somebody stands by themselves and we see him by themselves on Instagram, we see him at the gym, we see him walking down the street, we see him in the supermarket, right? We're like, holy shit, but when you get on stage against the best the world has, that's where you see the differences of conditioning. And when you're that big, you have to be conditioned. Because like if we're talking about Samson, who's Mr. Olympia, if he's off, he could drop to 3rd place. So imagine if Andrew's off, he could drop to 5th, 6th, 7th place. So yeah, it's conditioning, but this might sound a little weird to me, to you guys, or to many people. When I see Andrew, I still see places that he needs to add muscle. Like he doesn't look as full as other bodybuilders do. He has a beautiful physique. He flows beautifully. He has a great coach. But when I look at him, and I've always said the same thing. I see places in his body that still needs to grow a little bit more to push him to that. I mean, and I've said this before to somebody, and I've said this before twice to people, and they've laughed at me. I see Andrew as a really big classic physique guy. I know he's a bodybuilder. I know he's way over the limit of classic physique, but that's a physique I see Andrew in. More of a classic physique overall package, right? I just think he needs to add more density. If it's not size, it's that real dense hard muscle that makes you pop. That muscle that's when it's shredded and you don't have no water in there. The sub-Q water's out and you're dry as hell. You're walking around 3%. That density that's really there, that's what he needs. But to me, he looks a little empty. It might just be because he's not conditioned enough, and that density needs to be give a harder presence for the judges to place him higher.
Dave Palumbo, 2 years ago, when I asked you for your bold prediction of the 2023 Olympia, you said the title is going to come down to between Samson and Andrew. We're talking about 2 years later now. We just saw him on stage at the Arnold Classic, arguably his most conditioned look. In your opinion, Andrew Jack will crash the top 3 if?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do it. Not in this lineup. I don't think he's improved enough. But I haven't seen him, but I don't think he's. I think I agree with Joe. Made a very insightful observation. Without going, he should have gone a little further with it. Maybe he was trying to be nice. Andrew, and this is a compliment to Andrew, by the way. I don't think Andrew's willing to put his body on the line to the point of death. You know what I mean? He's not like willing to sacrifice himself to be the greatest bodybuilder of all time. He's not getting under 800 pounds like Ronnie Coleman did and squatting that. He's not going to push the limit with the drugs. He doesn't have to. In his mind, he started later too, so it's harder to grow. But the guy has put on so much size over the last couple of years, and that's probably if we looked at what he did to achieve that, we would probably laugh and almost not believe it. I think the guy has unlimited potential. He is 6'5", and I think that's why we see gaps in his physique. His legs are not really big enough. His upper body is great, but his legs could still be bigger. Will always be a top Olympian because he's the widest. He's got one of the best waistlines I've ever seen. He's tall and he's dominant. He's bigger. He's wider and bigger than Samson when you think about it, but he's not as complete as Samson. And if he doesn't come in shredded in this lineup, he's going to have a problem, I think, staying in that top 5. If he comes in shredded, there's the potential that he might look a little too small. So, I know that when Chris, as his coach, he has to kind of toe this line of, we got to make sure he's full enough so he doesn't look, too small. But yet, if we bring him in too full, then he won't be enough conditioning. So I think Fakhri's observation that he needs to be bigger is 100% accurate in that sense. And I think that's why he hasn't achieved what we had predicted a couple years ago, which was this guy could potentially be Mr. Olympia. And I don't know if he ever will.
It is that time now. Time for the moment of truth. Time to go on the record. Time to perhaps break some hearts, give some ego boosts. Time to name your Olympia 1 through 6. Which of you gentlemen want to go first on this one?
I'll go.
All right, here we go, Joe. Top 6. Let's go 6 through 1.
So 6 first?
Yes.
Okay, that would be Martin. 5th, Baruz. 4th, Derek.
Wow.
3rd, Samson.
Wow.
2nd, Hadi. And 1st, Nick.
All right. So Joe Palacios has Nick Walker as Mr. Olympia and the defending Mr. Olympia, Samson Dauda, slipping down to 3rd, and Derek Lunsford slipping down to 4th. All right. Armon, are you ready? Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody's on, I got a Derek at first, Hadi 2nd, Samson 3rd, Nick 4th, Beirut 5th.
And who's 6th?
Martin.
All right. Fakhri Mubarak, let's go 6 through 1, your 2025 Mr. Olympia.
This is so tough because we have so many. We have friends in the sport. Just real quick story. When Derek won, I saw him a couple months later. He goes, "Did you pick me to win?" And I'm looking at him. I'm like, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "Yeah, I saw the podcast." So
This is where you can just say Dylan.
Okay, first and foremost, I love everybody.
Wait, Wait. You also have to say they're all great people.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're all great people.
He's a great guy.
I know most of them, and they're all great people. All right. Can I go 1 through 6?
Sure.
Okay. I have Hottie first, Derek second, Samson third, Nick fourth. Nick, don't be mad at me, please. I think you win. I think Barouge, and I'm gonna pick the dark horse. Good Vito.
Nice. All right. So far we have some variation in the Mr. Olympia picks. We have one picking Derek, one picking what was it? Nick, you picked Nick, Joe. So we got Nick, Derek, and Hottie. So we got all three represented. Dave, you got the tiebreaker on this. The final word, 6-1 at 2025 Olympia.
Fakhri and I see bodybuilding very similarly. So our predictions are very close. I know Armon's very close too. I was saying that I think that Hottie was going to win. I've made a couple predictions earlier, but then I only because I thought maybe Derek would be burnt out from competing and winning the Arnold in the Pittsburgh. But I really think that Derek has a better physique than Hottie's. So I'm really kind of like torn on that first and second. I want to sentimentally say Derek. For some reason I feel like Hottie's going to he's been rested. He could potentially win it. So maybe just to be controversial, I'll say Hottie, but I really think that Derek is going to pull it off. But I'm going to say Hottie first, Derek second, Samson third, Nick fourth. I'm going to switch it up with what Fakhri said. I'm going to go Good Vito in the fifth position with Beirut in sixth. I think Good Vito is going to be a shocker. I would even say that the Good Vito might even be as high as third if he delivers what I think he's potentially capable of. But because it's his first Olympia, I'm gonna put him into that fifth position.
All right, I'm gonna go around the horn real quick. One name. Who is going to take the vacated Classic Physique Olympia title? Joe.
Oh man, what's his name? Mike Summerfield.
Armon.
If I was betting, I'd have to say Mike.
Fakhri.
Mike.
Yeah,
3-0 from Mike and Dave.
And I think Mike's the I don't think anyone's going to touch him. I got a big one for you guys. Who's going to win physique, men's physique?
Men's physique, yeah, maybe the most competitive men's division in terms of guys who are vying for the title. Joe Palacios.
I think it's going to be a repeat of last year.
Really?
Hmm,
Okay.
So Ryan and then Ali. Armon.
I think Ryan's got it.
Oh, wow, we're going for a three-peat here. Fakhri.
I agree. I think Ryan got it, but Ali's going to be tough.
Dave, I know your pick.
I'm definitely going with Ali all day long.
Ali?
Ali Bilal, best haircut in the lineup. I always say a good haircut always wins.
Abs.
And he's got the best abs in the lineup. But you know what? I gotta give credit to him. Jeremy Buendia looks really good.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is. You better watch out for him. I mean, he could win this thing. I mean, he's. I was super impressed with the way he looked. I don't think I've seen a guy make a comeback after that many years off and look that good. I mean, I think he's better than when he won the Olympia. So,
I think he looks better from the front. I think he looks better from the front, but not as good from the back. Yeah. The back maybe a little off, but the front, I think he looks better.
Yeah.
Than his previous.
And does anyone look? 212 maybe the lock of the entire Olympia. Keon. Anyone pushing him? Sean, the new kid, Nihat out of Turkey.
Watch out for Kareth Baggio.
Kareth Baggio, of course.
That's my guy. So
Zagarella.
I think Keon's in a league of his own at this point.
I got a better question for you guys. How would Keon Pearson, in your guys' opinion, do in the open class? Where would you place him?
This year. If he announced it, literally, I'm going to the open.
If he said, I'm doing the open this year, if they gave him an invite, how would he do?
I think he'd get fourth.
Wow. Armon.
You know what? I agree with him. I agree with him.
Armon, Keon, this year, open class.
4th or 5th.
Fact.
Well, I took a lot of heat a few years ago when Hadi competed against Flex, and everybody said Hadi beat Flex. Remember that show?
There you go. That's a great comparison.
The heat I took was that I said Flex was the second best bodybuilder in the world behind Phil Heath. And everybody's like, he's 212, 212, 212. Well, now we got two 212 champions. Hadi and Derek. Keon right now.
Dave, Keon right now in the open class, where did he place?
I'm pulling up a video. Hold on, I want you guys. I got to put this up on the screen because this is from last year. This is last year after he won the Olympia photo shoot.
Insane.
Tell me, is there any flaws in that physique?
Oh
No.
I mean, that could be that's what Mr. Olympia should look like. Now he's obviously
That's pound
short.
for pound. That's
he's
pound
short,
for pound.
but that's Mr. Olympia. That's like the greatest physique of all time. If you really, I mean, he makes Flex Wheeler look like weak, but he's obviously he's short though. He's very short though.
I was going to say,
Ronnie Coleman.
What it is like for me, why it's like I have to see him next to the bigger structured guys because when you see that size comparison in height, it's very like it stands out. And I think
of course.
His insertions and stuff make him look incredible. But it's like I want to have him in like second, but it's just because of that.
I mean, if he was taller, there's no one that would beat this guy.
No, that's not even close. It's number one all day. No doubt.
But
Impressive.
That's going to bring us to the end of the show, guys. I want to thank you big time, Joe, Fakhri, Armon, of course, Dave. Next week is the Olympia. We're going to be in Vegas providing wall-to-wall coverage in person. And then, of course, if you're not going to be there, you're going to watch on YouTube during the actual show. We are going to have a live reaction show. So Armon is going to be hosting it, and we're going to have a cast with him just analyzing the show. It's going to be sort of like the Manning cast, but for the Olympia. And we're going to have that for both night shows. We're going to have that in the daytime.
All live.
Right, all live for the 212, for men's physique, for classic physique. And then, of course, after prejudging and finals, we are going to have our star-studded mega wrap-ups as we do every year at the Olympia. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. And if you're not already following us on Instagram, that's where we're going to be posting live content during each prejudging, during each finals, official _RXMuscle. We'll see you next time.